Even though Pontiac passed away unexpectedly in 2010, it left behind an impressive automotive legacy. From the iconic Pontiac Transams that dominated pop culture to the Pontiac GTO, which is widely considered as the car that truly started the muscle car era, Pontiac's heavy hitters are still celebrated and enjoyed by enthusiasts worldwide. However, in 1961, prior to the GTO and the Firebird, Pontiac was developing what may have been the most fascinating car to come out of Detroit in the 1960s. A car with a rear-mounted transaxle. A car with these specifications would have generated a stir in the automotive industry. But this wasn't just a pipe dream concept car. It was actually manufactured, and it was a 1961 to 1963 Pontiac Tempest. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Rare Cars Revival. On this channel, we go back in time to examine some of the rarest and most iconic cars ever made. If you'd like to watch more short documentaries on uncommon cars like the Jensen Interceptor or the Pontiac Tempest, make sure to subscribe to the Rare Cars Revival YouTube channel. After completing the introduction, let's examine the background of the Pontiac Tempest from 1961 to 1963. The Pontiac that was used to build the Tempest in 1961 was not the same as the one that was killed in 1,000 cuts in 2010. Pontiac was formerly GM's true risk-taker, and the company was known for being like GM's automotive equivalent of Bell Labs. With its engineering and design, Pontiac was instrumental in promoting innovation throughout the General Motors conglomerate. These risks paid off with the Tempest. In the late 1950s, the Volkswagen Beetle was a tiny car that was sweeping the globe. American automakers hurried to produce their own small cars in an attempt to capture a small portion of the market so that the Beetle wouldn't take it all. Ford designed the Falcon, Chrysler produced the Valiant, and GM produced the rear-engine, air-cooled Corvair as a direct rival to the Beetle. GM intended to rebadge the car and sell it as the Pontiac Polaris. However, Pontiac wanted nothing to do with that because it was a brand that was upmarket from Chevrolet and produced a more premium vehicle. The issue with the Corvair being offered as a premium Pontiac is best explained by the general manager of Pontiac at the time, who stated that the Corvair is a rear-engine, air-cooled car. How can I change it? The main mad scientist responsible for the creation of the Tempest was a man named John DeLorean. DeLorean and his team at Pontiac wanted to push boundaries and create something that was truly ahead of its time. Since there is no grille to be restyled and the engine cannot be swapped out for a Pontiac power plant, how do I justify the additional $500 to $100 added to the price to sell it with a Pontiac nameplate? Well, he was correct. Instead of working with GM to get a different body design for the Corvair, Pontiac's mad scientists did what they did best and created something entirely different. They would have a fast temper. They would utilize the basic Corvair chassis, which is nimble, fuel-efficient, and provides seating for 6, but they would finish up altering almost everything about it to suit their demands. One of the most interesting challenges DeLorean and his team would face was building a 6-seat compact car, the Tempest. They accomplished this by mounting the engine in the front of the car and then placing a transaxle gearbox in the rear, which was connected by a 3/4-inch wide shaft. Pontiac increased the wheelbase from 108 inches to 112 inches and redesigned part of the chassis to now be a front-engine powered car. Since the Tempestuous transmission would be located at the back, this design eliminated the need for an unsightly transmission tunnel within the vehicle. As a result, they were able to use what was effectively a completely flat floor pan inside the vehicle to build 2 rows of bench seats that could accommodate 6 persons. The Tempest would use an altered version of the Corvair's independent rear suspension in an attempt to save development expenses, which had been mostly consumed by the Tempest's chassis modifications and new engine design. Indeed, in addition to receiving an insanely modified Corvair chassis, the Tempest also received a brand new 195 cubic inch inline 4-cylinder engine. In order to reduce weight and increase fuel efficiency, DeLorean decided to go with a 4-cylinder engine. This car was unlike anything else that an American automaker was producing at the time, and the four-cylinder engine was just as unique. Pontiac took their 389 cubic inch V8 and literally removed one bank of cylinders to create their inline four-cylinder, which they lovingly dubbed the Trophy 4 engine because it was based on a 389 and shared many parts with the V8, including the pistons, rods, heads, and many other components. The base model of the Tempest, which had a four-cylinder engine with 110 horsepower and 190 foot-pounds of torque, was available in an extremely basic version. Upgrading to a top trim with 155 horsepower and 215 foot-pounds of torque, which was equipped with an aggressive cam and a 4-bell carburetor, meant that these Trophy 4-powered Tempests could go from 0 to 60 miles per hour in approximately 10.5 seconds when paired with a manual transmission and a set of 373 rear gears. Although not particularly fast, these cars were fairly quick for their class. Additionally, you could choose to have your Tempest equipped with a Buick 215 cubic inch V8 that produced approximately 185 horsepower. The Tempest was offered with a 3-speed manual or automatic transmission. The 61 and 62 Pontiac Tempests were substantially the same, with the exception of some exterior changes to the car's front ends. However, the 1963 model year of these Corvair-based Tempests was a very different story. Pontiac changed everything about this car, stretching its length and width by 5 inches and replacing the more subdued and understated styling of the 61 and 62 models with a more muscular and squared-off appearance for 90, which made sense given that Pontiac's new 326 cubic inch V8 engine, which produced 260 horsepower and 350 foot-pounds of torque, was available for the 1963 model year Tempest. This engine replaced the 215 Buick as the top engine trim, providing roughly 100 horsepower more than the Trophy 4 and even more insane than the 326 power Tempests or the 421 cubic inch V8 powered Super Duty Tempests, of which Pontiac produced just 6 units for 1963. Under the hood, the super stock 421s were no jokes. The 421 Super Duty vehicles were designed specifically for super stock drag racing. In addition to having a fully lightened aluminum front end to save weight, these super stock cars also featured a Pontiac transaxle in the rear, making them the ultimate pinnacle of the Pontiac Tempest. These cars were powered by a 421 Pontiac motor that produced 405 horsepower and 425 foot-pounds of torque. In the 1992 film My Cousin Vinny, the Pontiac Tempest of 1963 features a particularly interesting pop culture allusion to its distinctive independent rear suspension. Nonetheless, 1963 would be the last year for the Pontiac Tempest model line. The more cars that use the same core parts, the better and more efficient their production line could be, meaning they would make more money. The Tempest really was in a class by itself with its transaxle design, and shops complaining that it was harder to fix them because they were different than like 98 of the cars on the road at the time the decision was made in 1964 to transition the Tempest onto the more traditional of-body GM platform, with the more complex transaxle design proving to be the final nail in the coffin for the car GM, building thousands and thousands of cars every week. Approximately 370,000 Pontiac Tempests were produced between 1961 and 1963, but it would be difficult to find one of these in good condition today. It appears that over time, the difficulty in obtaining replacement parts for these cars meant that many of them never received the care they truly deserve and ended up rotting away. 1964 saw the introduction of newer Pontiac Tempests, which is unfortunate because these early models were some of the most distinctive cars ever produced by GM. It is unlikely that a car like these early models would have ever been produced today. This is a brief history of one of the most underappreciated American cars in history, the 1961 to 1963 Pontiac Tempest. The idea that a manufacturer inside the GM umbrella would go ahead and substantially modify an existing product to make something really new that had parts that were absolutely not interchangeable with other cars in the GM lineup is just crazy. Please make sure you are subscribed to the Rare Cars Revival YouTube channel and hit the notification bell for more documentary-style videos like this one on the most fascinating cars in the world. We would be very grateful if you could like and share this video with other enthusiasts.